Dr. Amanda Parker's coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, but she barely noticed. Her eyes were fixed on the quantum array's readout at NASA's Deep Space Communications Center in Houston. Something was wrong with the numbers. The background radiation patterns from the Kuiper belt showed subtle distortions that shouldn't exist in natural space. "Hey, Marcus," she called to her assistant, who was half asleep at his own monitoring station. "Can you verify these readings for me?" Grid Sector 227 Alpha. Marcus Thompson, a recent MIT graduate with perpetually disheveled hair, blinked himself awake and pulled up the data. "That's weird. The gravitational measurements are all over the place, like something massive is out there, but it's moving." Amanda nodded, her heart rate picking up. She'd spent 15 years monitoring deep space communications, and she'd never seen anything like this. The pattern suggested objects larger than anything humanity had ever built, decelerating from impossible speeds. "Run it through the new quantum detection algorithm," she ordered, fingers flying across her holographic keyboard. The facility's mainframe hummed to life, processing the anomalous data through filters designed to detect artificial signals in natural space noise. The results made her blood run cold. "Get me Director Reynolds. Now." Within 30 minutes, the center's conference room was packed with senior staff. The director, a former Air Force general with steel gray hair, stood at the head of the table while Amanda presented her findings. "These objects are massive, each one approximately the size of Manhattan," she explained, projecting a 3D model of the readings. "They're decelerating in a controlled pattern that defies our understanding of physics, and they're headed straight for Earth." The room erupted in whispered conversations until Director Reynolds raised his hand for silence. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" "At their current rate of deceleration." Amanda checked her calculations. 48 hours. The next day and a half was a blur of activity. Every major space agency and military installation on Earth was notified. Amateur astronomers began spotting the objects as they entered the solar system, their crystalline surfaces reflecting sunlight like artificial stars. Amanda hadn't slept. She couldn't. Not when her quantum arrays were picking up increasing amounts of structured data emanating from the approaching objects. She was close to cracking the pattern in their communications when everything changed. At exactly 900 UTC, every electronic device on Earth capable of receiving a signal, from smartphones to radio telescopes, activated simultaneously. The message came in 157 languages, broadcast with perfect clarity. "People of Earth, we are the hegemony. Your civilization has been deemed adequately advanced for integration into our empire. You have 30 Earth days to surrender your sovereignty and accept our dominion. Resistance is historically futile. We have annexed thousands of worlds in this manner. Those who resist are eliminated. Those who submit prosper under our guidance. The choice is yours." The message repeated 3 times before fading to silence. While the world erupted in panic, Amanda stayed focused on her screens. In the quantum noise beneath the hegemony's transmission, she'd spotted something crucial, a pattern in their base communications protocol that suggested their quantum systems weren't as advanced as they appeared. "Marcus," she called, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Get me everything we have on quantum entanglement spoofing. And find Dr. Reynolds. He needs to see this immediately." As she compiled her findings, Amanda glanced at a photo on her desk. Her grandmother as a young woman, standing in front of a World War II code-breaking machine at Bletchley Park. "Guess pattern recognition runs in the family, Grandma," she whispered. The hegemony had made their first mistake. They'd assumed Earth's quantum technology was as primitive as our visible space presence. They didn't realize that while humanity might not have massive crystalline worldships, we'd mastered quantum mechanics in ways they hadn't predicted. Amanda smiled as she completed her analysis. The hegemony's communication systems had a fatal flaw, one that only a species that had developed quantum computing from scratch, rather than inheriting it from a galactic empire, would recognize. Earth had 30 days, and thanks to Dr. Amanda Parker, We just found our first advantage. Dr. James Miller stood in his backyard in Norfolk, Virginia, watching his 16-year-old daughter, Hannah, present her science project. Under normal circumstances, he would have been simply proud of her work on microfusion containment. But these weren't normal circumstances. Not with alien world ships hovering at the edge of the solar system. "So you see, Dad," Hannah explained, adjusting her safety goggles, "by using electromagnetically confined plasma in a modular container, you can create a sustainable fusion reaction at 1/10 the normal size." Her demonstration unit, built inside an old microwave, hummed quietly on the picnic table. James barely heard the rest of her explanation. His mind was racing, connecting dots that nobody else had considered. He turned to look at the massive Norfolk shipyards in the distance, where thousands of cargo containers sat idle since the hegemony's arrival had paralyzed global shipping. "Hannah," he interrupted, "how many of those containment units could you theoretically link together?" She blinked at him. Theoretically. As many as you want, as long as you maintain the magnetic field integrity." "Why?" 3 hours later, James was being escorted into an emergency meeting at Naval Station Norfolk. His hand shook as he laid out his hastily drawn plans in front of Admiral Thompson and his staff. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," James said, spreading the diagrams across the conference table. "We don't need to build traditional spaceships. We need to convert what we already have." Major Emily Blackwood, recently transferred from Space Force to help coordinate orbital defense, leaned forward. "You want to turn cargo containers into spaceships?" "That's brilliant," she finished, her eyes scanning the calculations. As a pilot who'd logged thousands of hours in experimental spacecraft, she recognized the elegant simplicity of the design. "Each container becomes a self-contained unit," James explained. "We use Hannah's, the new microfusion design for propulsion, standard car engines modified for reaction control thrusters, and spray the exterior with ablative cooling compound. The best part, we already have automated manufacturing lines designed to modify cargo containers." Admiral Thompson frowned. "Even if this works, these would be one-way trips. No life support, no." "Who said anything about human pilots?" Emily interrupted. She pointed to another part of James's designs. "Look at the control systems. These are drone protocols. We could pilot these remotely, or—" She paused, glancing at the Admiral. "We could use the new autonomous systems." The room fell silent. Everyone knew about the classified AI developments that had been accelerated since first contact, but nobody had dared suggest deploying them at scale. "How quickly could we build a prototype?" Admiral Thompson asked finally. James glanced at his watch. "Give me 48 hours and access to Hangar 7. 47 hours later, Major Emily Blackwood stood in front of what looked like a standard cargo container with engines strapped to it. The hangar was filled with nervous engineers and military personnel, all watching as she pulled on her flight suit. "The calculations check out," James said, helping her with the helmet seals. "But if you don't want to—" "Are you kidding?" Emily grinned. "Every pilot dreams of being the first to test something new. Besides, someone has to prove this works before we start mass production." The test flight was scheduled for a simple orbit. Instead, Emily took the converted container past the moon, pushing the fusion drive to its limits. When she reached Mars in just 72 hours, a journey that normally took months, she sent back a single message. "Tell Dr. Miller he just revolutionized space travel, and tell Hannah her science project just saved humanity." Within hours, the Norfolk prototype was being scanned, and its designs transmitted to every major shipyard on Earth. The hegemony sensors detected the increased industrial activity, but dismissed it as primitive desperation. They couldn't understand what their scans were telling them: that humanity was about to turn its global transportation infrastructure into the biggest fleet in galactic history. In his backyard, James watched more container ships arrive at Norfolk, brought in from ports around the world. Next to him, Hannah was already sketching improvements to the fusion drive design. "Dad," she said quietly, "we're going to need a lot more microwaves." Lieutenant Michael Hayes stood at the edge of an Olympic-sized swimming pool in Colorado Springs, watching as technicians modified yet another pool-cleaning robot. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent years training here as an Olympic swimmer before joining the military. Now he was turning his old training ground into something else entirely. "Remember," he called out to the team, "these units need to maintain perfect synchronization underwater. If they can't coordinate in a pool, they definitely can't coordinate in space." The Swimming Pool Initiative, as it had been dubbed by someone with a sense of humor, was transforming thousands of robotic pool cleaners into automated manufacturing units. Their advanced navigation systems and water-resistant components made them perfect candidates for conversion into space-worthy assembly robots. "Sir," called out Technical Sergeant Lisa Martinez, "you're going to want to see this." She held up her tablet, displaying a live stream from Robert Kane's press conference in Silicon Valley. Kane, the reclusive tech billionaire who'd vanished from public view 3 years ago, stood before a crowd of reporters. Behind him, massive screens displayed programming code. "As of this moment," Kane announced, "the entirety of the neural matrix development platform is free and open source. Every AI advancement my team has made over the past decade. All of it is now available to anyone who wants to help. We developed this system to make autonomous vehicles safer. Now we're going to use it to save Earth." Michael whistled low. The neural matrix was legendary, the most advanced AI development platform ever created. Kane had spent billions keeping it private. Now he was giving it away. "Start downloading everything," Michael ordered. "We're going to need it for the next phase." Across the world, thousands of swimming pools were being drained, their cleaning robots requisitioned for the war effort. But that was just the beginning. Every automated manufacturing system, every smart device with sophisticated movement algorithms, was being repurposed. In his command center, a converted high school gymnasium, Michael coordinated with other facilities worldwide. The pool robots, now upgraded with Kane's AI and new manufacturing protocols, were practicing their assembly routines underwater before being deployed to space. "Think about it," he explained to General Roberts during an inspection. "These robots already know how to work together in three-dimensional space. They already understand fluid dynamics. Space isn't that different from swimming. It's all about efficient movement and conservation of energy." The general watched as dozens of modified robots moved in perfect synchronization, assembling and disassembling test structures underwater. And the hegemony won't see this coming because they're looking for traditional manufacturing signatures, Michael grinned. "Giant factories, industrial complexes. We're building our production line in swimming pools, bathtubs, and water treatment plants. Their sensors can't distinguish this from normal civilian activity." An alert flashed on the main screen. Robert Kane was requesting a direct link. When his hologram appeared, he looked excited. "Lieutenant Hayes, we've cracked something big. Those converted pool robots you're using. Their basic programming, the way they map and navigate space, it's mathematically similar to how the hegemony ships move. We think they're using the same basic principles for their fleet coordination." Michael's mind raced with the implications. "So our manufacturing robots already understand their movement patterns?" "Better than that," Kane smiled. "They can predict them. Every pool robot has spent years learning to anticipate and adapt to human swimming patterns. They're literally programmed to outmaneuver objects bigger and more powerful than themselves." As if to demonstrate, a team of robots below executed a perfect assembly sequence, their movements fluid and coordinated. Michael remembered his swimming days, how the water always felt alive, how you had to work with it, not against it. "Send me everything you've got," Michael said. "And Mr. Kane, we're going to need a lot more robots." In orbit, the hegemony's sensors detected unusual energy patterns in thousands of locations across Earth's surface. Their analysis labeled it as inefficient energy usage in recreational facilities and flagged it as further evidence of humanity's primitive resource management. They never considered that humanity was turning its swimming pools into boot camps for a robot army. Captain Jessica Thompson stood in her converted destroyer's command center, surrounded by what looked like a professional gaming setup. The walls were lined with high refresh rate monitors, and her crew, handpicked from the world's top sports teams, sat at stations that resembled streaming setups more than military equipment. "Remember," she addressed her unusual bridge crew, "everything you've learned in competitive gaming applies here. The only difference is the stakes." She nodded to her tactical officer, former world champion Ryan Quicksilver Martins. "Show them what we've got." Ryan pulled up a holographic display of their first wave, 100,000 converted cargo vessels, each powered by microfusion drives and equipped with Dr. Parker's quantum entanglement communication systems. The ships were arranged in what looked like chaos to the untrained eye, but to anyone who'd spent time in competitive gaming, the pattern was clear. "We call it the Zerg Rush Special." Ryan grinned, using an ancient gaming term, but with a twist. Each ship's AI is running a modified version of the neural network that dominated the World Strategy Championships last year. They don't just swarm, they learn and adapt in real time. Jessica checked the quantum countdown clock. 10 minutes until launch. Dr. Parker's discovery about the hegemony's quantum communication weakness had led to this moment. Earth's ships would communicate using entangled particles in a way the aliens couldn't detect or decode. "Final checks," she ordered. "Remember, absolute radio silence. Everything goes through the quantum network." The launch, when it came, was silent but spectacular. 100,000 ships, hidden in Earth's shadow, powered up simultaneously. The hegemony's first warning came when their sensors detected a massive energy surge. But by then, it was too late. On the hegemony command ship, Supreme Commander Zelvix watched in amusement as the primitive vessels appeared. "They send cargo containers against our world ships." His laughter echoed through the crystalline bridge. "Record this. Let all systems witness how we deal with such." His voice trailed off as the human vessels began to move. Instead of a straight attack formation, they flowed like water, creating impossible geometric patterns that somehow left no clear target for the hegemony's automated defense systems. These patterns, his tactical officer reported with growing concern, they match no known military doctrine. "Our targeting computers are having difficulty." Jessica watched from her command ship as the first wave executed their attack pattern. Each vessel moved according to combat maneuvers derived from thousands of hours of competitive gaming data. The hegemony's predictive algorithms, designed to counter traditional military strategies, couldn't handle the seemingly random but precisely calculated chaos. "Pattern Sigma 7, she commanded through the quantum network, "just like we practiced." The cargo ship fleet split into smaller groups, each executing moves that looked like they came straight from a championship gaming final. Some spun in spiral patterns that scattered enemy targeting, while others performed complex weaving maneuvers that turned their formations into moving shields. "They're launching interceptors," Ryan reported, his hands flying over his custom control setup. "Just as we expected. Activating counter-pattern Delta." The human fleet responded instantly, shifting into a formation that any gamer would recognize. A modified tank and spank strategy from classic NO raids, adapted for three-dimensional space combat. Small, agile ships drew enemy fire, while larger vessels moved into firing positions. In the hegemony command ship, alarms blared as their targeting systems began to fail. Their advanced AI, programmed with millions of traditional battle scenarios, encountered something it had never seen before: warfare based on game theory and competitive esports. "Impossible," Selvix muttered as the first wave of human ships breached their outer defenses. They're using combat patterns based on entertainment." Jessica allowed herself a small smile as the first phase of their attack succeeded. "Launch second wave," she ordered through the quantum network. Time to show them why Earth never lost a major video game tournament to any other world. The hegemony was about to learn that humans had been practicing for this moment for decades. They just didn't know it at the time. Colonel David Wright stood in the center of what used to be Madison Square Garden, now converted into the largest tactical operations center on Earth. Holographic displays showed thousands of green dots representing Earth's vessels, moving in patterns that seemed random but were anything but. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said to his lead mathematician, Dr. Rebecca Santos. "Each ship's movement is based on the Fibonacci sequence, overlaid with chaos theory algorithms derived from weather patterns." Rebecca nodded, her fingers dancing across her holographic keyboard as she made real-time adjustments. The hegemony's targeting systems are designed to predict linear military formations. They can't handle patterns based on natural phenomena. Above them, a massive screen showed the battle unfolding in real time. Earth's vessels moved like schools of fish, flowing around enemy fire in mathematical patterns that looked impossible for artificial systems to coordinate. But that was the genius. They weren't coordinating. Each ship followed its own chaotic, but precisely calculated trajectory. "Status update on Pattern Nightingale," David called out to his team. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper, a former professional dancer turned tactical officer, responded without looking up from her station. "The movement patterns derived from classical ballet are proving particularly effective. The hegemony's AI keeps trying to predict the next step in the sequence, but since classical dance moves follow emotional rather than tactical logic, their systems crash trying to find military reasoning behind artistic expression," David finished, allowing himself a small smile. "How are the TikTok-derived evasive patterns performing?" "Even better," Sarah grinned. "Apparently, alien battle computers really can't handle the randomness of viral dance trends." Who knew? The main display suddenly flashed red as the hegemony launched a massive counterattack. Their crystalline ships formed perfect geometric patterns, their traditional formation designed to overwhelm with synchronized firepower. "Initiate Operation Calculator," David ordered calmly. Every screen in the command center filled with cascading numbers, the chaos mathematics that would guide Earth's response. Each human vessel began moving according to a different mathematical constant. Some followed the path of pi, others traced the golden ratio through space. Groups of ships moved in patterns based on prime number sequences, while others followed trajectories derived from fractals. "Their main AI just crashed again," Rebecca announced triumphantly. "Third time in the last hour. They keep trying to find the pattern, but there isn't one. Or rather, there are too many patterns overlapping." David watched as a squadron of Earth ships executed a perfect Mandelbrot formation, their paths creating a spiral of destruction through the enemy fleet. The hegemony ships, programmed for military efficiency, couldn't adapt to combat mathematics based on natural chaos. "Launch the Fourier Squadron," he commanded. A new wave of ships emerged from Earth's shadow, their movements based on wave function mathematics. They rippled through space like sound waves made visible, their trajectories impossible to predict unless you understood the underlying mathematical poetry. In the hegemony command ship, the alien leaders watched in growing horror as their combat computers repeatedly failed to predict human movements. Their tactical displays showed impossible patterns, ships moving in ways that seemed to defy both physics and logic, yet somehow maintaining perfect formation. "Sir," Rebecca called out, excitement in her voice. "The basketball playbooks we converted into combat maneuvers. They're working perfectly. The hegemony ships can't handle the improvised nature of sports strategies." David nodded, remembering how they'd fed decades of professional sports plays into their combat computers. Humanity had spent centuries developing ways to move unpredictably while maintaining team coordination. Now those same skills were winning a war in space. "Begin final sequence," he ordered. "Let's show them what happens when you combine every irrational number in existence into one massive battle plan." The display erupted with new patterns as Earth's fleet began moving according to the most complex mathematical formation ever attempted. A combination of chaos theory, sports tactics, dance choreography, and pure human improvisation. In that moment, looking at the swirling patterns of human ingenuity meeting alien precision, David understood why Earth would win. The hegemony had perfected the art of war, but humanity had mastered the science of chaos. Master Sergeant Rachel Martinez watched the holographic battle display from her command post on the International Space Station, now converted into humanity's primary orbital manufacturing hub. To most observers, the debris field from destroyed Earth vessels looked like a tragic waste. To Rachel, it was exactly what she planned. "Activate the replication protocol," she ordered, her voice steady despite the excitement building in her chest. "All manufacturing units, commence Operation Phoenix." Across the vast battlefield between Earth and Mars, thousands of seemingly destroyed cargo vessels suddenly came to life. What the hegemony had dismissed as wreckage transformed into an intricate network of mobile manufacturing facilities. "First wave of fabrication units showing green," reported Lieutenant James Chen, her chief engineering officer. "The swooning pool robots are performing even better in zero-G than we hoped." Rachel nodded, watching as the modified pool cleaning robots emerged from their hiding places within the debris. Each robot, now equipped with advanced manufacturing capabilities, began collecting destroyed ship components and processing them into raw materials. "Status on the molecular printers?" she asked, moving to a different monitoring station. "Operating at 127% of projected capacity," James replied with a grin. Turns out Dr. Miller's daughter made another breakthrough. Her homework assignment on molecular reconstruction gave us a way to rebuild faster than we're losing ships. The main screen showed the process in real time. Destroyed Earth vessels, rather than becoming space junk, were being broken down to their constituent atoms. The materials were then instantly reformed into new ships using advanced 3D printing technology scaled up to astronomical proportions. "The hegemony still thinks they're winning," Rachel smiled, watching enemy ships continue to target their vessels. "They haven't realized that every ship they destroy provides materials for 3 new ones," James finished. "The ultimate recycling program." A warning light flashed on the main console. The hegemony had finally noticed something unusual about the debris field. Their scanners had detected unusual energy signatures among the wreckage. "They're adapting," Rachel announced. "Time for Phase 2. Launch the constructor swarms." From hidden positions throughout the debris field, millions of tiny robots, each no bigger than a coffee cup, activated simultaneously. These were the next generation of manufacturing units, designed by combining toy assembly lines with industrial automation principles. "Sir," called out Specialist Sarah Rodriguez from her monitoring station, "the first batch of new ships is complete, using the improved designs based on battle performance data." Rachel watched as fresh vessels emerged from the debris field, each one stronger and more efficient than its predecessor. The manufacturing network was learning, evolving, improving its designs with each iteration. "The hegemony's starting to figure it out," James reported, pointing to enemy movement patterns. "They're trying to vaporize the debris now instead of just destroying our ships." "Too late," Rachel smiled. "Initiate the swarm protocols." The millions of tiny manufacturing robots began to move in concert, forming massive, shifting structures in space. What had appeared to be random debris consolidated into enormous mobile factories, each capable of producing dozens of ships simultaneously. "Think about it," Rachel said to her stunned crew. "Humanity has been practicing for this moment ever since we invented assembly lines. We didn't just build a fleet, we built a fleet that builds itself." On the main screen, the space between Mars and Earth had become a vast industrial zone. New Earth ships emerged from the factories like clouds of mechanical locusts, each one immediately joining the battle with updated tactical programming. The hegemony thought this was a war of attrition, Rachel said, watching their enemies' formations begin to falter. "They didn't realize we turned the battlefield itself into the largest manufacturing facility in human history." In the debris field, a destroyed hegemony vessel drifted into range of the constructor swarms. Within minutes, its exotic materials were being converted into raw resources for Earth's ever-growing fleet. Now that, Rachel grinned, is what I call poetic justice. Commander William Wild Bill Harrison lounged in his command chair aboard the converted cruise ship U.S. Mind Games, feet propped up on a console, conducting psychological warfare while playing Mozart's Ein kleine Nacht music through every frequency the hegemony could receive. "Status update on Operation Earworm," he asked, taking a sip from his coffee mug emblazoned with Earth's best space troll. Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez, his chief communications officer, grinned as she pulled up the data. "The hegemony's command channels are in chaos. They can't understand why we're broadcasting classical music mixed with laugh tracks while destroying their fleet. Their psychological profiles indicate they expected us to either cower in fear or display grim determination. Hit them with track 17, Bill ordered, his eyes twinkling. The one where we remixed the 1812 overture with carnival sounds and victory cheers from the World Cup. The Psychological Warfare Division, housed in what used to be the cruise ship's entertainment deck, had turned human emotions into a weapon. Each station was staffed by an unlikely combination of military personnel, sports commentators, and comedy writers. "Sir," called out Dr. Peter Matthews, their lead psychologist, "the latest analysis of hegemony communications shows increasing signs of stress fractures in their command structure. They're having trouble maintaining their hierarchical discipline." Bill nodded, unsurprised. That's what happens when you face an enemy that treats interstellar warfare like a particularly entertaining sports match. Cue up the victory soundtrack from Super Bowl LVII. The hegemony commanders, used to enemies who either fought with grim determination or begged for mercy, couldn't process an adversary that seemed to be genuinely enjoying the battle. Their ship's formation began showing subtle signs of disorder. "They're trying to jam our broadcasts," Emma reported, suppressing a laugh. "Should we switch to contingency frequencies?" "Nah," Bill waved his hand. "Let's show them what Earth's got. Release the meme warfare package." Across every frequency, Earth's ships began broadcasting a carefully curated collection of humanity's most iconic celebration moments. Everything from ancient Roman triumph marches to modern victory dances. Each explosion of a human ship was accompanied by cheerful music and enthusiastic commentary, as if it were a highlight reel. "Hegemony command ship is showing signs of extreme confusion," Peter reported. "Their tactical decisions are becoming erratic. I think we've successfully disrupted their command philosophy." Bill stood up, walking to the main view screen. "You see, that's their weakness. They conquered thousands of worlds by being the biggest, scariest empire in space, but they never faced humans before. We're the species that invented the victory dance, the encore, and the concept of winning with style." On the tactical display, a group of Earth ships executed a perfect formation while broadcasting the choreography from Stayin' Alive. Another squadron timed their attacks to the beat of Queen's "We Will Rock You." "Their flagship is requesting emergency communication," Emma announced suddenly. "Audio only." "Put them through," Bill smiled, adjusting his captain's hat to a jaunty angle. The voice of the hegemony commander came through, strained and confused. "Why? Why do you celebrate your own losses? Why do you treat this sacred combat as entertainment?" Bill's response was casual, almost cheerful. "Because, my dear alien friend, humans learned long ago that style points count. Besides, if you're going to save your species from an overpowered alien empire, you might as well have fun doing it." He nodded to Emma, who cooed up their secret weapon, a massive compilation of every underdog victory celebration in human history, from ancient Olympics to modern esports tournaments. "After all," Bill continued, broadcasting to the entire hegemony fleet, "what's the point of winning if you can't enjoy it? Now, who's ready for the final?" "Hit it, Emma." The space between Earth and Mars erupted with the most powerful psychological weapon humanity had ever deployed. Pure, unadulterated joy in the face of overwhelming odds. In their crystalline ships, the hegemony commanders faced a terrifying realization. They had never before encountered a species that could laugh in the face of death, dance amid destruction, and turn warfare itself into an art form. Admiral Sarah Matthews stood on the bridge of the converted supercarrier U.S. Innovation, watching as 300,000 ships moved into their final positions. The space around her rippled with energy as Earth's remaining vessels prepared for Operation Firefly. "All commanders reporting ready," announced Captain Miguel Rodriguez, her tactical officer. "Dr. Miller's fusion drive modifications are complete across all ships." Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display where the hegemony fleet still maintained their crystalline formation, though noticeably less perfect than before. Their once impeccable patterns now showed signs of stress and uncertainty. "Open a channel to all Earth vessels," she ordered, "and make sure the hegemony can hear this too." When the channel opened, Sarah's voice carried the weight of humanity's determination. "This is Admiral Matthews to all ships. In the past 25 days, we've shown the galaxy something they've never seen before. We turned cargo containers into warships, pool cleaners into space factories, and classical music into psychological warfare." She paused, watching as the final pieces moved into position. Now it's time for humanity's signature move, doing something so incredibly audacious that no sane species would even attempt it. Initiate Operation Firefly. Across the battlefield, Earth's ships began a maneuver that looked like pure chaos. Thousands of vessels activated their modified fusion drives simultaneously, their exhaust trails creating intricate patterns in space. "Pattern confirmation," Miguel reported, excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. "The swarm is achieving fusion resonance." Dr. Amanda Parker's voice came through the quantum comm. The mathematical models were right. The fusion trails are interacting exactly as predicted. We're creating an artificial solar flare. The space between Earth and Mars began to glow as thousands of fusion drives worked in concert, their energy patterns amplifying each other. The hegemony ships, their sensors detecting the building energy, began to pull back. "They think we're about to sacrifice our entire fleet in a suicide attack." Sarah smiled. "They don't understand that we've already calculated everything down to the last decimal point." Lieutenant Hannah Miller, no longer just a science fair contestant, but now Earth's leading expert in fusion mechanics, spoke up from her station. "Resonance cascade reaching critical levels. Just like in the simulations, Admiral. The hegemony's crystalline ships are about to learn why you don't ignore high school physics projects." The space around them erupted in a display that would have made any star proud. The coordinated fusion drives created a miniature solar flare, its energy focused by the precise positioning of Earth's fleet. The radiation wasn't enough to destroy the hegemony ships, but it was exactly the right frequency to interfere with their crystalline structure. "Look at their formations," Miguel called out. "Their ship's crystal matrices are distorting. They can't maintain their perfect geometric patterns anymore." Sarah watched as the hegemony fleet began to break apart, their once perfect formations dissolving into chaos. "Send the message. The one we prepared." Across every frequency, in every language the hegemony used, Earth broadcast its terms. "You came to our world expecting to find primitives. Instead, you found the species that turned its garbage into spaceships, its swimming pools into factories, and its defeats into victories. We're the crazy ones who dance while we fight and laugh while we build. We're humanity. And we're just getting started." The hegemony's response came minutes later, a full retreat order. Their remaining ships, their crystalline perfection, marred by fusion-induced fractures, began jumping to hyperspace. In the debris field, the manufacturing robots continued their work, already recycling damaged ships into new vessels. On Earth, cargo containers were still being converted into spacecraft. And in orbit, Hannah Miller was already sketching out improvements to the fusion drive design. "Send a message to all Earth forces," Sarah ordered, allowing herself to finally relax. "Tell them, Tell them humanity just earned its place among the stars. And we did it our way, with duct tape, pool cleaners, and a whole lot of style. As the last hegemony ship vanished into hyperspace, humanity had written its first chapter in galactic history. They would be remembered not just as the species that defeated the hegemony, but as the ones who did it while playing classical music and cracking jokes. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity.